merging it with Olympus, with like harmonizing it with the current model, and raising funds together to another treasury that we will use together with. I have a legal team here in Portugal, banking system. I have like bankers. I have everything in place to just bring funds and land bank, like buy the whole of central Portugal and then divvy it up to people in the future. And there's different pivots here. So there's 300 people plus. If anybody's interested, DM me. Let's get this ball rolling. Let's make a proposal in the forum, and let's see how we can take this to the next level, because there's a lot of money to make and there's a lot to gain buying and selling land here in this little place called, not just Portugal, worldwide, obviously. I mean, I'm even thinking NFTing exclusive properties, like turning exclusive properties to NFT, then sharding them, then giving every member of the community ownership of real world property via token. And I want all of this to go back to Olympus and Odyssey. And let's start a conversation, because in times like this, we got to think out of the box and we got to bring more to the
Mm.
table. And I think that if we put all our brains together, we can do it. Thanks for your time, guys, as always.
Thank you.
Start a DAO so we can buy Greaser, so we can actually start the new Olympus.
Bro, Greece is
Exactly.
dirt cheap, man. Greece is dirt cheap. Let's start somewhere. Okay, I'm with you. Okay, guys, let's go. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Greaser, love you.
Love.
Okay, so we got a question in the channel which I wanted to address real quick. It's around Tokamak. So, how is OMV1 and Tok reactor being managed? Yeah, so they need a new reactor, right? For V2, it's being worked upon. I think even after the AMA today, there's a call around that. So, all addressed in due time. I think on Tok we are earning a shit ton every single day. Also, that's like a sort of income. I think we're still the second largest holder there. Imagine if they start pumping out those liquidity plays. So that's amazing. People really forget the amount of sheer volume we are at. We are one of the whales of DeFi, and that's also emphasized in Tok. So that's very good. Jella Yella 99.
Yella.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing fine, guys. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Doing well. What's
Hey,
your question?
I had a quick question. So, I've been looking at the bonds, and you have a 5-day vesting period or 14-day vesting period. I was wondering, since Olympus had like quite a high volatility over the past few weeks, even the last months. I was wondering, what's happening is that you have a discount, for example, of 5%. The volatility over 5 days can be 10% or plus 10% or minus 15%. I was wondering what your guys' opinion on this was.
Sorry, what's the? Are you referring to as which one you should buy?
No, I'm not referring as which one I should buy. I mean more like the value that you're giving if there's a price action which goes down 15%, but you're buying a bond at just a 5% discount, you're losing out on minus 10%. And I was wondering if this is an active talk within Olympus to perhaps give more value to the people that are bonding, because it's still very risky right now.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure. I don't want to speak for policy, but I think I've seen like 1-day bonds or like 2-day bonds and stuff like that. So that's the only thing I can talk about. I don't think we've really talked about this topic. That's a good topic though.
1-day bonds already sounds really amazing. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's only knowledge I have, and like I said, like since the V2 bonds just got put out, I think the policy team is working on figuring out different bonds as well. So I've seen a 1-day bond. I can't guarantee it though. It could be like 2 days or 3 days, but it'll have maybe shorter time frames as well.
All right, thank you very much.
Come back. So I just want to touch base with the gentleman that was speaking right prior, Yellow 99. So I know Climate, I don't know lick any stuff that I'm not allowed to lick, or say anything that it's not accurate. But I know that Climate was looking into eventually down the road purchase land, which I believe was like pieces of forest, pieces of like parks, which I think it's a great thing to do, especially to for what the goal are. So yeah, I kind of see where you may be coming to value to bring it on later on. I'm just studying real estate myself, and I mean I love everything about it. But I mean I feel like right now the project is very young, and there's a lot of things that we can do without real estate that can definitely elevate this project even further. And today was an example. I think that if we can maybe put silver lining on today, I mean, the project hold amazing. In my opinion, it honestly has hold amazing. I mean, we had this huge cascade of liquidations, and we're going back up gradually. There is life. There is life, and definitely there is life at the end of the tunnel, in my opinion. Um, so that's for the part of the Lima and the land. I also want to remind everybody that Om does have some percentage in Lima. So essentially, if you're invested in Om, you are invested in Lima. Therefore, if they're going to buy land, and you essentially have a piece of a percentage of land, so to say. But again, if you guys want to go look into their announcements and their the weekly calls, feel free to go in there. Just like a World Olympus, it's a great community, and I love both of you guys. You guys are doing a very good job, and you guys are proving that we're on something here. So let's 3-3 and let's fucking go.
Hi guys. So I have a history of basically uh in the stock market. So I remember one of the guys two people ago was talking about buying land. I agree with you. It's not a very liquid market, but you guys can use something called a REIT. And basically, since you guys can be an organization in the United States, you can buy a REIT, buy stocks in a REIT, and this could be, and the REIT will own, say, hospitals, hotels, and in exchange, you guys will receive a dividend. And if you do have a bank run, you can always sell that REIT back in the terms of a share. So it's very liquid that way, and you guys technically don't have to worry about property management.
Sorry, my mic was
No,
muted
I
again.
was muted. Okay,
Yeah, me
same.
too. I think you should maybe connect with the guy that was talking about this again. I don't.
Oh yeah,
The goal for Olympus is still the same thing as it was before. I just want to say again, I know there's a lot of sub DAOs coming from Olympus. I know there's a lot of projects that are being incubated, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, our goal as a community, as the DAO, whatever you may say it, is still for Olympus to gain a huge, thick as fuck treasury and become the reserve currency of DeFi.
I see
And
your point. I see your point.
any other type of goals is really not sufficient for us because it just causes problems. But yeah, connect with that guy who was talking about buying a house and buy whole Greece for us. Thank you very much, sir.
No problem. Have a good day, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next one. Sven Baumann. Looks like the Baumann from The Big Short. Wasn't he also called Baumann? I don't know. Great movie. Again, guys, as we're talking here, since we started this thing up only, so I'm not quitting until we go down. No, it's a joke. Okay, try again, Sven. It's been a great 2 hours already. I really like interaction. I hope this helped a bit with understanding everything a bit, making us feel homies together, right?
Hello,
Hi, Sven.
hello, do you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. So I hope you all are doing well.
For sure. And you?
Okay, so I feel like as I originally come from the Tesla community, and what I really like about the community is like the education that you can get for free, and that's how a lot of retail investors got the conviction to buy the stock and also hold it. And I think it would be beneficial to the protocol to like do build a community like that also, where there's just great educational material to build a conviction for all the holders, for all the hobbies. So would there be any like interest in the DAO to really make a lot more education available?
Yeah, I think we're. I mean, I feel like the main place where people get information from is like our landing page,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that we're working on, kind of revamping, and we hope to have the landing page like be like a more structured website with more education and stuff like that coming out like maybe in the beginning of end of March.
Okay. And would there be any interest in I would love to like contribute to that. Is there any interest in that or not?
Yeah, I think you would have to talk to Walter about it because he's the community lead, so maybe
No, I
DM.
think we have definitely put like made some strides there. I think our documentation best out there at this moment in time. I think also, and that's now with migration a bit fucked. I agree with that, but our information dashboards on the website, I think, has been copied more than yeah, I don't know what, but it's all over the place over DeFi. I think there we really making some strides. For example, the fact that people today ask, well, can we upgrade the page makes makes that a lot of people were using it, so that's great to see. But I agree that from a purely educational perspective, it should be a bit more approachable. Like not everyone is on Discord, not everyone is on Twitter, and not even everyone is on YouTube, right? So we also need certain types of educational material that are much more accessible to the broader public, and we can definitely. Yeah, for example, Olympus Playground is another thing that I see here in the chat. That we can definitely highlight much more to people like you, or for example, people that are new. Indeed.
Hey, thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Thank you, sir.
So have a nice day, and I'm looking forward to Zeus in a couple of minutes.
Have a lovely day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, with no one left to speak, Joe, are we going to chat a bit about stuff in the next 5 minutes until like the big man comes on? I say
Sure.
big man, but he's probably just like 1 meter 50 something, right? Because he's only 4. Oh,
Where
1 meter
is
50. Which 4-year-old is 1 meter 50? Okay.
Wait, Zeus is turning 15 this year, right? 15?
It's 15, yeah, but I don't, you don't need to say that. Not everyone needs to know.
That's a joke, by the way. I think we have maybe time for one or two more questions if anyone did have a question, or we can just
Vibe. Don't feel awkward. Like you're this big mouth on Twitter. You can be a big mouth here as well. Come on.
we're confusing Kona. I'm a very chill person.
Yeah, that's true. That's a funny thing. Dutch 15-year-old kids are yeah, that's true. No, Dutch 15-year-old kids are like 1 meter 80. Experience. It's fucking messed up. It's because like half the country is under sea level, so be quite tall, else they would drown. Okay. Any other questions? When will Geo migrate to Polygon network? Indeed, it's already there. Like your dreams have come true.
Wait,
You're already on Polygon. So
yeah, we're on Polygon, Phantom, Moon River, Arbitrum, Avalanche. What's left? Solana and Terra.
Solana?
Not yet. No, those will be at the end of the month. Probably at the end of the month.
Exactly. Is that alpha?
Probably. And I think, yeah, I think it's the end of the month because we're doing a pool with Terra directly. I think there's a proposal on their end.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah. What about Terra bonds, Sean?
I think we're gonna do the wrapped Bitcoin bonds first. I think we're just waiting for the allocator contracts.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta double check though, cause yeah, the wrapped Bitcoin bonds are first, and then the UST bonds as well.
Yeah.
But I think to start those bonds, we're kind of waiting for them because they're also migrating to a different UST, right? Like it's the wormhole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's
Okay, I'll
coming.
put out an announcement for everyone to join. At Omi's, we'll start the real AMA in 5 minutes.
Any plans to combine Time Wonderland into Olympus Down and work with Daniel? Oh,
Next.
any other questions? Thoughts of taking other stables such as gold, even if not. I don't think we've talked about taking. I mean, gold is really not a stable. No, not any real. We haven't really talked about real world assets like that. V2 bonds are which do we know? Yeah, so other terms will come. Policy team just wanted to put these out. They're working on other terms as well. Like I said, maybe like less than a week, few months, and stuff like that.
Okay, everyone joining from the announcement, welcome. This is not anymore the pre-party. This is the true V2 bonds AMA. So this is joining momentarily, and then we can get this thing started. We've been going for 2 hours already. This is not an exercise. This is not a fire drill, but we are going to do this live. So I'm just changing the titles here. Maybe Drondon, if you're listening in, I hope you are. Can you record? Then we can let people listen in as well later on. And if you have any questions, right, look above the V2 AMA stage. Try to ask your questions there. Maybe ping me so that I see it and I can ask questions to Zeus, and then we can go from there. I see people with the I eat ass sweater. That's a nice one. Seems like you have quite some dog's hair on you. I hope. At least I hope it's a dog and not your girlfriend. Quite nice. Don't
It's a
record
nice
that,
color.
Brandon.
Nice color. I like it.
Yeah, it's a cat. That's what they all say.
That's a free sweater too, sir. Even better. It's better when it's free. Unless you pay for it.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, Zeus, bro. So he says to me, "Where do I join?" Like that guy. Cat and dog mix. Oof, that's rough. Why is bond price being higher than Ohm itself? Yeah, let's ask the dev in a second. Play the song No Balls. Okay, sounds like a fun song. You have set Olympus as butterfly and Klima tokens, but we can't see them on chain. Cancer. Like
We
give me
don't
one
have
sec.
the butterfly tokens yet.
Oh, we have.
The P butterfly. We got them
Not the P butterfly, but the butterfly
Okay. On the bonds. Okay. Yeah.
the bonds, and that's already like 230k now, just with the price increase was 300k earlier today. It's not
Do you have
nothing,
the,
right?
yeah. Do you have the Zapper link that we can share?
Yeah, but it's missing one. Wait, I posted one earlier today. Let me try to find it. Treasury.
Yeah. So the P. So we have P Klima and P butterfly. We have the P Klima in our treasury, but we don't have the P butterfly just yet. It'll be
Exactly.
added later on.
So I'm going to post the Zapper link. This one is the most up to date. It's still probably missing like a couple of million, and I think this one is the latest up to date one, Hades. I don't know if that's the same. Yes. So Here you can see not the P butterfly, but you can see that we already have some butterfly. You can see the klima, you can see the convex, all the goodies. Some claimables are not in there, like the FXS that is being locked for 4 years. You got it from the messages. Okay, that's great. Okay, without further ado, we have been 2 hours now, but the main event is starting. Welcome, Zeus.
Welcome, Mr. Zeus.
Hello.
Hi.
Everyone.
You sound tired. Tired from all the
Oh.
buying, or?
Come on. Worn out. I'm just excited to be here. I don't know. That launch went, yeah, we're going to get into it, but that launch went super smoothly. I would say probably the smoothest of like anything that we've ever done. And there's a lot of cool stuff that we can do with this. So
Yeah, this was actually a very smooth launch for first one.
Definitely.
Good
Definitely
job.
smoother. Yeah, good job, devs. Good job, everyone. Smoother than Sabio's cat, I hope. So that's a joke for the people that were here before. Okay. Good. So let's get started, right? Maybe Zeus, can you give like a little introduction on V2 bonds, about like what excites you about, and what is different? Like, why is this such a new thing in for Olympus, and what can be now done with this, right? I think that's also an important point.
yeah, so I mean, they take this underlying mechanism that we've essentially used the same contract since we launched. And that was, especially compared to this, very bare bones, where you essentially just, you choose an asset, and then you have this BCV control variable that determines the rate at which it's going to try to accumulate this asset. I feel like it's like the smacking rocks together approach. It's not all that sophisticated. And like one thing is just like this BCV variable is kind of arbitrary and like difficult to compute, just adds a bunch of overhead. So with these new ones, actually one more thing with the old ones was that, for every different asset that you're trying to slurp up, you got to deploy its own dedicated contract. So there's also just an element of like deployment cost, gas, plus dev overhead, both on the smart contract side and the front end side. Just causes a lot of pain for everyone. Waste time. So with these, so first thing is just that everything lives in one roof. And so the process is spinning one up instead of previously where you got to deploy a contract, you got to approve it in the treasury, you got to get the front end to integrate it, you got to compute these control variables, so you can set this up. It's now just a single create transaction on the contract that will, create the market. It will propagate on the front end. There's none of that overhead exists anymore, which really lends itself to, what I think will be very cool is when you're having these things governed on chain, because you don't have to, go through all that rigmarole to get there. Another one is, so previously there was this control variable that kind of determines the rate of everything. Instead of that, so that's kind of your off-chain, it's derived from what you're actually trying to do. Like the control variable becomes this derivative of what you're really trying to do, which is either sell or buy this many tokens in this amount of time. So previously that is the intent, and then you're finding a control variable to match that. It now works where you just pass the contract those things, and the contract figures out what the control variable should be to accomplish that. And so it tunes itself on an interval that, right now it's 1 day, and it'll probably continue to be a day. That seems like a good kind of interval where it's not too frequent, but it's not too infrequent. But you pass it, here is your capacity, which is either an amount of ohm or an amount of token that's being purchased. Here's a time frame to do so in, and it'll just tune itself to accomplish that. And so, it becomes really you're cutting out all of the kind of arbitration and just giving it, here is a goal, accomplish this goal. Yeah. So other things with this are, so this is all just on the Olympus side, really, is like what I've talked about thus far. Everything is stored in these independent notes, is what they're called on the contract level. So you can think about this like a slip of paper, where you get a bond and you get a slip of paper that says at this time you're owed this amount. This is secured, by the way, where your payout is sitting there waiting for you at the time of creation on. So there's no trust element of will it be there at the end. It's sitting there from the time that you create it. But rather than previously, it was kind of this like in the contract you just store on the address level like they're owed this much. So what's important here is that previously, if you had a die bond already and then you buy another die bond, it's going to reset the counter on your previous bond. And it created this whole you got to kind of split between different addresses, and you got to that's removed, where all these things are isolated. So you could get a bond today and then another one in 5 minutes, and it's not going to change the previous one for the next one. They're all independent notes that are stored. Those notes are also transferable and tokenizable. And so I know that there are 2 projects right now that are working on tokenizing bonds. I think that that's going to be very, very cool. There is a lot of sophistication in that opens up in terms of creating interest rate markets, creating kind of futures. And I guess one other thing is currently, if you are a bonder, you are locked into illiquidity for some amount of time. That's the way that it's worked right now, is that you are going to be illiquid for the term of that bond. This changes that dynamic from you will be illiquid to someone will be illiquid, but it might not be you. If you have a liquid secondary market for the bond, you'll be able to exit that position early if you want to. You're just not going to derive the full benefit of the discount. And that in itself should lower the discounts that the Treasury has to pay, because instead of I need to figure out what's worth it because I'm going to be locked no matter what for this amount of time, it's just on an aggregate basis, what is the market willing to be illiquid for? Yeah. And then should I go into OP side of things as well?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So the OP mechanism is pretty much the same as this. And so I think that OP is going to be like a monster, where really it opens up the benefit of this from just protocols to really anyone. So the mechanism that it creates is essentially a secondary or isolated market for an asset, where let's say that you are trying to accumulate ohm and you got DAI, and you don't want to do that all at one point in time. You're the accumulator. You could use OP to tell it, I've got 10,000 DAI, and actually, so don't do this on Ethereum, at least, because your gas costs are gonna mess you up. But I got 10,000 DAI and I want to buy ohm with it over the course of the next 2 weeks. You would give that to OP. You would tell it your capacity is 10,000 DAI, your time frame is 2 weeks, and it will just price itself the way the bonds work to accomplish that goal over the course of those 2 weeks. And at the end of the 2 weeks, you will have essentially twapped into a position where it's spent your 10,000 DAI. You have an amount of ohm. You'd probably want to do this with S or GOM, so you're staked. But actually, it just sends you the asset at the time of bond. Anyways, it's this tool essentially for accumulation and distribution of assets, just on an aggregate basis for anyone. Where let's say you're some whale in some market and you're trying to accumulate or distribute some token. Probably the easiest place that you're gonna be able to do that is with Olympus Pro. And so the scope of the product becomes a lot larger, I think, where, this isn't just for protocols, it's really for anyone that's dealing with large sums that doesn't want to incur large slippage in a market. And you are moving all of the actual buy and sell into the real market activity onto third parties that are going to arbitrage the bond that you've created. So it kind of mitigates your risk as well. These are pretty hard to. It's very hard to manipulate in a way that's unfavorable to you, because let's say that someone is trying to get you to pay a higher price. The only way that they can do that is to move the price on the primary market or on the real market down for a significant period of time, because it takes time for the bond to decay and reach that price that they're trying to like jip you into buying at. So with a flash loan, they're not going to be able to do that. They're going to literally have to move the price and like leave it there, which means that the price is actually just moved to that level. Yeah, I think that like. I really think that this can be used on a very large scale, and the benefit here is that we can take fees off of all of these things, much or like similar to how Uniswap works. I don't know. I don't think that it's something that can exist or like replace traditional AMM markets, but it really can like supplement them quite significantly. Yeah, really, all of this, like none of this is or particularly possible with the infrastructure that we've had today. But with these new ones, it's not only possible but quite easy. Yeah, I guess one more thing on just like the OP side is, even if you're not trying to do some large position, so spinning up a market will cost you like $90, which is the equivalent of maybe it's 20% more than a DEX trade. And then the people that are executing these, depositing for you, they pay the gas of your like transactions. So, even on that level, you could just save money on gas. It's kind of like coincidence of wants or cow swap, where you save gas by offloading those activities onto other people executing orders. I think that's pretty cool in itself, where this could just be a thing to kind of save you money in executing orders itself or on its own.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. I'm looking for questions in the chat. So if you have questions, please post them in the V2 Bond AMA chat here, and we can ask them. In the meantime, also, it's hard to go around it, but like any maybe comments also on like what happened today as well, like just the market in general, what we saw, stuff like that. Why people basically shouldn't really be phased about this.
Yeah, I mean, from what I can tell, it's some massive liquidations going on. So, I mean, hopefully this kind of serves as a lesson in the fact that debt is not free and 99 is not a like free money. I've never looked at it in that sense, but if anyone did, they're probably learning that that's not the case now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, someone just said 1818. I don't even want to know what that is.
And at least we got a Bloomberg article out of this, right? So
Did we?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think volatility is to be expected. Especially like I remember seeing things where like, oh, like if I have my liquidation point at $250, like there's no way that hits. Never think like that. I think that you're kind of asking for it at a certain point with that, especially. Like, because I mean, you can see like there's a pretty known thing in the Bitcoin market where especially back in the day at BitMEX, there would be concerted efforts to liquidate you from your position, because the best time to buy an asset is when you're liquidating other people and they're forced to sell it to you at low prices. I guess keep that in mind just in any DeFi endeavor where you're dealing with leverage. Yeah, I mean,
Is that for selling, sir? because people have to sell to pay off their debt as well. I think that was we had a similar situation a couple of months ago, and people still weren't.
Well, you're creating forced sellers. So if
Yeah.
someone is getting liquidated, they're selling and they're not choosing to sell. They're forced to sell. You know, I would imagine that most of the people getting liquidated right now would not do so if it was like a choice. You know, it's just which, you know, if you're a buyer in a market, that's usually the best time is, you know, the other person doesn't want to sell it to you and it's too bad. It's mine now. Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton that we can do about it, right? Where it's a function of debt that exists. You know, the good thing with it is just that you are clearing out this debt. So, you know, essentially, unless you dip lower than before, no one is getting liquidated anymore. Unless new debt adds that, you know, can be liquidated within this range that, you know, we've been in now. That's a good thing in itself. Is you're just kind of clearing out that latent debt that doesn't contribute much. Yeah, I don't really know much else to. I don't pay attention to. I guess I've gotten DMs today where I actually have to look, but like generally, I'm not really watching these. I don't know. I think that the focus should not be on where the market price is at.
Exactly, but that's at some point, especially also since it relates to bonds, right? People think, what will happen when we trade around backing or even below backing? Then those bonds, right? Yeah, they will miss their effect because basically it's not adding that much premium anymore to the bonds that are being sold, and so on, so on, so on, right?
Yeah, so that is true. You know, but the difference is at that point your risk is significantly mitigated. So it becomes much more of a stablecoin dynamic where maybe not die but rye, where, you know, there is some volatility that can exist in the market, but it's pretty minimal, and, you know, the growth of the network becomes a little detached from, you know, your growth as a holder. You know, so if you're holding a stable coin, you know, let's use Frax as an example where, you know, we started this partnership with them when their supply was 50 or 100 million and today it's 2 billion. You know, if you held Frax, you didn't see the benefit of that. You know, you're not up 20x because the Frax network is up 20x. But you also didn't take any downside risk in that. So if the Frax network shrinks now from, you know, where it's at to back to 100 million fracs, doesn't affect you. Which, you know, really it's the switch from into being, you know, an actual currency. You know, so it's this, you know, we spoke about it early on, the switch from expansionary to, you know, more stable and currency-esque. That switch is, you know, inevitably, I guess, when that comes. I still think that, you know, we're like 10 months into this. It's not necessarily something that has to happen today. You know, if it did, I don't think that it would be the worst thing in the world, but I don't know. I don't really see it happening.
Okay. It's also the fact that we are now the second highest volume after wrapped Bitcoin. It's quite nice.
I mean,
640 million.
Fees alone, we probably made like $1 million today in fees.
Yeah. But that's a question that came up actually a while back, where someone asked, "What about impermanent loss on our LP positions and on this LP fees that we generate? Isn't that a big problem?" It's also slightly related to bonds, of course.
Yeah, so in terms of impermanent loss from launch, I believe that we are. I don't know about at this level, but I think even at this level, impermanent loss is positive. So fee revenue has exceeded impermanent loss. But I see that impermanent loss as like, you know, if you're an individual LP, you don't really care about the rest of the market. You know, you're in it for yourself. In the case of our LPs, you know, the purpose of them is to serve you. And so its impermanent loss is the market's impermanent gain in a sense, where it's essentially buybacks are already occurring just through impermanent loss.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Okay. What are like the next assets you think that we should bond with these V2 bonds? Are there like assets we can think of? Maybe also because now we have longer term bonds. Does that change the dynamic? How are we looking at that?
Yeah, I would separate the two in that what doesn't really correspond with like how long the vesting term is. In terms of what, I think that UST bonds would be good. I know that that's been like on the docket for a good amount of time, and it's really just been waiting for this V2 infrastructure. Rep Bitcoin as well, although I mean, like I have no crystal ball on where the macro environment goes. So like whether it's a good or bad time to be slurping up Bitcoin, I don't know. I think like it does make sense that we would have exposure to Bitcoin at this point, and so that might be a sensible one. The cool thing with this though is really that we can we could spin up a bond that lasts for one day, if that was desirable, right? It could be offered for an hour and a half. It's kind of limitless in terms of like it just comes down to how much. So, in terms of the length of time, like I think that these should definitely start to get kicked out. So these current ones are 2 weeks. I really want to see monthlies. I think that beyond that, fixed expiration is probably a better route. But like we can do quarterlies where they expire, April 1st, June or July 1st, etc. And what's it called? Kind of losing my train of thought, but yeah, I mean, with those, so one is that you are, kind of sinking supply a lot more, and then two is the much cooler one, which is that with tokenization of those, we can create liquid secondary interest rate markets for that are kind of derived from the discounts of bonds on the primary market, that would look a lot like how treasuries work. So you have this risk-free rate of yield on a long-term home position, where your choice is essentially, do I go to the like direct market and buy staking into Geom, or do I buy a discounted future Geom? And the rates that those like work out to, I think one, you separate the impact of bonds a lot more from the actual primary market, but two, the information that provides, I think will be pretty massive. Where you can look at, okay, an expiration in 3 months is discounted by 3%, and an expiration in 6 months is discounted by 7%. So if you're to do 3% times 3%, that is a little lower than 7%. And so there's information to be told there in that people, are kind of discounting, the expected yield on a longer term time frame is greater than just stacking shorter term time frames. Versus the opposite, where if the longer term yield is actually lower than 2 times the shorter term yield, then that is an expectation that yields are shrinking, or that there's an expectation of greater scarcity at a future point in time than there is today. Those things are just super valuable for quantitative analysis in markets, I guess. So you're creating new information that's not easily interpreted, and that provides edge and alpha that produces new activity and lends itself to new participants that are able to interpret those things. Overall, just increases the sophistication of the market. and makes the overall market more efficient because you're bringing in new players that are able to profit off of inefficiencies and shrink them in the process. Which all serve to really just like create this strong underlying financial foundation for this, currency and economy, where you have this baseline generation of economic activity that lends itself to healthy economic activity on an aggregate level.
Okay, interesting. And so a question that came up, right? So to make very clear for everyone, this is replacing the old bonds that we have, right? We're not like right now we're running them in parallel, but outside of that, like in the future, let's say a month, only V2 bonds will be active. Am I right?
Yeah. The question is, in like a month from now, there will only be V2s.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I would expect so. I do think that the V1s could have a place in this whole picture in the future, and that they like work a little differently. I don't really see that at a current point in time, though. So, at least in the short term, my expectation would be that the V1s are phased out in favor of the V2s.
Okay. Good. And so you already touched upon it a bit, but how can other protocols start using this now? Like these, let's say that we offer a 60-day bond period, right? And bond today at 200, and the price goes up to 400. How can someone actually benefit from that specific bond position that they might create today into the future? And why is it so interesting that markets can be created with this?
Yeah. So, was that on the OP side or on our side?
Both, maybe.
Okay. I mean, with the OP side or with the R side, it's really just, you acquire a bond with 60-day vest. You're going to increase your position by whatever the discount is on that. So instead of going to the market with the same amount of money and getting some amount of ohm staking it, you'll get that amount of ohm staked plus the discount on the bond. And so, in return for taking on some illiquidity, you are rewarded with a larger position. On the OP side, I think that, essentially any protocol that's utilizing this gets the same benefit. But it's like shit. What's it called? But beyond that, our benefit from OP, I think becomes, this kind of loops into this proposal from Redacted the other day, which we can go into that in more depth, I guess. But what that really enables, what they're asking for is that it becomes viable for protocols to utilize OP, accumulate ohm, have that ohm staked, and then at the same time be able to provide liquidity with it. So what that debt solves is that currently, if you want to provide liquidity for ohm on an ohm pair, you are forfeiting all of the rebases that you would have otherwise earned. There's an opportunity cost attached to that, which is the yield on SOM that you have forfeited so that you can LP. This creates a dynamic where, unless you're a Chad like Redacted, that it's a difficult sell to get protocols to provide liquidity paired with ohm. And so, the viability of that is lower, and thus, like, Olympus Pro, which I think and have thought should really serve to be this venue where ohm is the primary payment currency. That's what I would really like to see that turn into, is that you can use any assets here, but the most useful asset to buy and sell on Olympus Pro is ohm. I think that it makes sense, as the creators of that product, and like the point of ohm, I guess, is that it is supposed to be the most beneficial, or like, I can't think of a word except OP, like overpowered, financial asset that you can hold. Extending that so that it's a viable proposition for other protocols to capture that benefit while
Mhm.
providing the benefit back to us that you can now, or like additional liquidity is paired against Ohm, and you as an Ohm holder have additional like things that you can buy with it. We're trying to kind of corner this liquidity market.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so a question that comes up there, right? So the ohm that people do OP for ohm, they put that back in they give that as collateral to ohm and an S ohm, right? And get ohm out of it to pair with their with their own tokens to get liquidity, right? But where does that ohm come from that they actually loan from the DAO? Is that DAO reserves? Is that being minted? And is there a potential that ohm basically that pool of ohm which they are taking it out of is actually drying up because so many protocols will do this in the future? Maybe.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So definitely good thing to understand is it's not free tokens. All it is doing is, so they're minted, but they are minted against SM collateral. And on the SM token itself, it will not allow you to transfer that collateral unless you have repaid the debt. So you have, 100 SM, or, the contract, sorry, because this should only be done on a contract level. It should never be lent to an EOA or an address that can take that debt and go and stake it again. So it's purpose built. But they have 100 SM, they borrow 100 Ohm against it, and now that contract cannot move out that 100 SM unless they repay the 100 Ohm. So it's not free money. It's really just like, instead of having to unstake and forfeit all of the rebases, they are allowed to retain the rebases while still, being given unstaked Ohm that they can then pair. So, it just removes the opportunity cost of unstaking, nothing more. Yeah. And there,
Okay.
there's pretty infinite liquidity that can be provided with that. I do think that like this should be phased into. We shouldn't just jump head first into it. It's a new dynamic, and it should be moved into conservatively. But on paper, there's not a ton of like adverse effects that it can afford really. So if there's a dynamic of so what if you pair with some token and then the amount of ohm in that pool decreases because either the price of ohm goes up against that token or the price of that token goes down against ohm, which are the same thing but said in two different ways. All that happened there is whoever owns that pool has lost ohm. It's not a protocol loss, it is their loss. So, which would be the same loss if they were to have just unstaked and pooled the same amount and the same thing happened. Yeah, so it's really the same dynamic as if they just unstake and do the same activity. It is just we allow them to retain the rebases that they would earn if they were staked instead. We do that because we would prefer that they are unstaked and providing that liquidity instead of being staked and earning the rebases. So if you're not going to do it because you want to earn the rebases, fine, you can have the rebases as well.
Okay. And then how will we put this into the market? Is this open to everyone? Are we going to only whitelist these sub-DAOs that we have that also they bring value to us, so we bring value to them? How are we envisioning this in the future?
Yeah, so it has to go through governance. I think that it should be on an individual basis. So a protocol wants this ability, they come to governance, they say, we would like to be, set up with one of these facilities. They have to set governance has to set a debt limit. So the maximum amount that they can borrow, that has to be part of that proposal. And yeah, so I mean, I don't think that it should be like a generalized, just hey, anyone come do this. I think that there's an opening for kind of a middleware layer where you have one approval afforded that then it affords the same approval to multiple pools. But we can get where when we get there. There's a bit more nuance to that. That I don't think it would be that beneficial to get into right now.
Okay,
It doesn't
good.
seem like a near-term concern.
Indeed. Okay. Good. A lot of questions that came up in the previous 2 hours that we had here is, like, after this, right? We had migration, which was quite a big exercise. We had now the V2 bonds. We are still adjusting a bit to that. But what is next for Olympus? Like, what excites you next? What are you thinking about? Do you think that we have achieved what we wanted to achieve in this period of time? And where do you see us, for example, in a year's time, ideally? That's a big question, I understand, but
So on the topic of migration, like I hope that you guys appreciate the fact that we have like gone through hell with this. Like it makes sense that volatility has been produced because this has just been a pain in the ass for literally everyone. Like the good thing is that we're now past it. We're basically wrapping up the last little loose ends. Like it happened. We're through it. We're past it. We have much better infrastructure in place moving forward. Like I don't know. Bless everyone that has worked on. I think that it could have been a lot worse. But it has just it's a lot of like education and understanding and activity and all these things that just kind of suck for everyone. Yeah, but we're past it now essentially. I think that this was really the last piece. Actually, the last piece is so let me check because I just gotta. Okay, so the last piece is the Chainlink Oracle for V2 Ohm. So once that is live, we can then move the remaining liquidity that exists on the V1 side, which fun fact, like a quarter of our liquidity is still over there. And we can finish moving the rest of the treasury over, and we're done. Which, inshallah. Where it goes from there. So one of the biggest things that this enables. What was that? One of the biggest things that this enables, right, is on-chain governance, which has been like mentioned, but we have not taken action on it. And I really think that is our next, thing to do. Is right now we're kind of playing with training wheels. And when we move to on-chain governance, all these things that are kind of handled in an off-chain manner become directly on-chain controlled. And so, one, you have this dynamic of just, if a protocol wants to acquire this debt permission, the only people that they talk to are governance, are you. We have many smart people in our community that will weigh in on their opinions. But at the end of the day, the people that decide are the people that hold the tokens. And so you have a much more direct and executable, what's it called? Like distribution of power, ownership of the network, where it is very direct. With this, this is the real game theory of all of this. Is like 3-3 currently is somewhat of an optional endeavor, and it's solely derived from personal benefit. What it moves to with on-chain governance is that 3-3 is a means of survival. So if the network as a whole is not in a cooperative state, the network will kill itself. And this is how I view it. This is how a society is structured. Essentially, is in a society, people need to be 3-3. So if you are not cooperative on an aggregate level, then your society falls apart and you're going to devolve into chaos. Like you can have people that defect from that and will screw over the whole at the benefit of themselves. But at the end of the day, if the overall structure is not aligned towards cooperating with each other, then kind of everything falls apart. It is a reality of survival. That is the dynamic that we move to, which is that one, it is a responsibility, and with that responsibility is benefit, and that you're able to direct the direction of this network. You can try to direct it towards what is beneficial to you, but so is everyone else. But at the end of the day, you want the system to exist, or else you are hurt as much as anyone else. I've been working on writing this, just because I don't think that was as clear as it can be, but it really just takes all this game theory and turbo loads it. I also see this as a big moat against anyone that's trying to fork this, is that they're either going to be unable or unwilling to move to on-chain governance. It carries drawbacks in that there's less ability to arbitrarily make decisions. I view that as an incredibly good thing. In other cases, that's a bad thing. If you're building this off of the ability for your internal team to arbitrarily manage it, there's a use case for that, certainly. I don't see it the use case for us, and hopefully we're aligned on that. All of this is going to need to go through governance before execution, but I do hope that there's alignment on that. But yeah, I guess it really just takes all the game theoretic dynamics of this, that this whole piece has been excluded thus far. It's been on training wheels where it's softly the case in that we do many of these same things through snapshot governance, but it's a different thing when execution is binding. It becomes a defense dynamic almost, of we are 3-3, and we are the owners, controllers, and defenders of this network. This is ours, and we will fight for it. We will protect it. Its benefit is our benefit, and its harm is our harm. I don't know. I think that it's going to be very cool, because this is why I think it's really cool to see protocols accumulating as well. Is that this goes to delegation, where I would be surprised if really the vast majority of decisions are being made by the holders of tokens themselves, but rather by delegation. So you are a holder, you delegate to someone that aligns with your values and where you want to see this thing go, and they vote on your behalf. So it's a republic setup. The difference between that and a traditional republic in history is that you don't have to have a election cycle attached to this. So you voted, or you delegated your votes to someone, and they said that they were going to vote in this way, and you can verify how they're voting, and it turns out that it's not in the way that they said that they would. You don't have to wait for an election cycle where they can, wait until a couple months before and then, promise that they're going to vote differently, and then you got to wait and see. You can change your vote right at that time. And so the responsibility to uphold what you're going to do is constantly lying on the delegates. You can expand that as well to protocols, where protocols that own Ohm have their own agendas and ways that this system can benefit them, and they are going to pursue those just like everyone else is going to. And you have this aggregate of people that are out for themselves, but want to protect the network, because the network surviving and thriving allows them to continue to be out for themselves. It's this balance between how do I direct us in the most beneficial way for me that is best for the network. There are multiple good outcomes for the network, and I want the one that is best for me. I don't know. I think that it will be so cool. In a competitive environment, it's really fighting over power itself, I guess. I don't know, I'll stop there, but
No. That makes sense. I think that's also what you see now happening with convex.
exactly, yeah. Convex is
Oak,
this.
FXS, yeah, exactly.
Convex and Curve are these potent examples of how this can work in a relatively niche use case, which is just stablecoin liquidity. What happens when you just take it from stablecoin liquidity to demand itself? That is the holy grail. There is never a lack of demand for assets. you know, uh, that is a persistent market need. I guess that there will always be demand to direct demand. I think it takes the curve dynamics and really turbo loads them.
Can I ask one difficult question? Maybe difficult, I don't know. But like for someone that has bought at top maybe a while back, like what reason do you have to basically hold Ohm as opposed to maybe more younger protocols out there, or at least these forks that you see that are doing maybe quite well, or like basically any other asset than Ohm right now? Why would you say that holding Ohm or having Ohm is a good investment at this point?
I think that you should hold Ohm if you believe in kind of this vision of a community-owned currency. Taking how a currency works today and putting it in the hands of the users of that currency. If you don't believe in that, you probably shouldn't have been here from the start. And it does suck when there's volatility and things draw down. We're not insulated from that, and it's the case with literally everything. Like even if you hold the pretty much like lowest risk assets in this industry, you're still down a significant amount. It's a factor of macro. It's a factor of just how growth in markets work, which is that you grow and then you shrink. It's not just one smooth line up. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to. There is an immense amount of work being done to build this thing up.
Yeah, exactly.
By myself, by so many other people. I think that the amount of coordination that this thing has produced is absolutely awe-inspiring. It really has built this shared foundation to create something together. And I strongly believe that we are actively executing towards that every single day. I think that we have one of the issues that I think that we've run into is that we set out at the beginning of last year with a pretty long list of goals, and we've accomplished almost all of them. And when that happens, it's like, okay, what do we do now? What's next? There's sure as hell plenty of things to do, but you got to kind of realign on what those things are. And in the middle period, there you kind of have a period of aimlessness, where you've crossed all the items off the list, and it's like, okay, now we have to make a new list. Which is almost like victimization of success. But if you look at the projects that are being built around this, that are leveraging this in one way or another, there's literally like 20 different projects that have spawned up or will launch within the last 2 months to probably in the next 2 months. Like these things are growing in the background at like an incredibly fast pace. None of this comes together in the span of days or weeks or months, probably not even years. And we haven't even hit the 1 year mark. Like, I don't know. It does, I guess, make it harder in senses. It makes it easier and harder when you grow quickly early on. It can be great, but it also has its drawbacks in that a lot of things just take time. And, like, I guess the market can move faster than than actual development. But that doesn't mean that those things aren't coming together. It's just that, like, take some time for them to really kick in. But you can see them coming together. And I think at an incredibly impressive rate. I don't know. So I would really just say, like, if you believe in other things more than this, like, maybe those other things are for you. If you think that, if you see what I personally see, which is that, the likelihood of this being successful becomes more and more every day. I don't know. Like, I'm incredibly impressed with how far we've come. I think that the future is very bright, and we just have to keep working towards it. Yeah, I don't think there's much more that you can.
No, that makes sense, and I just want to emphasize for people that didn't join, in the next year, you'll really see like all these partnerships protocols that we are starting to work with that will use OM, especially also that function that was explained before, OP, even our V2 bonds where people can integrate with. You will really see Olympus being used as like this base currency, reserve currency of DeFi, and that is such a big effect, I think, on like just this protocol in general and the direction that we're on. That's definitely something to be bullish about. And yeah, so that's a biggest accelerator to do so, and you'll see that step by step we're really going towards that. With everything that's being built, everything that's put out there, I think the vision is quite clear at this point. If people haven't read, for example, Zeus's Medium post, please go and look at that. It really lays out a bit what OM will be in 2022 and what we're working towards. And step by step, you'll see that these things are being pushed out of the DAO with great regularity. I think you see that as well from the past few months. But we are definitely hard at work, all of us, to make that happen. Maybe we have 7 more minutes because I know you have a call after this. So someone is asking, I was wondering what Zeus's views on fairness of the current voting system. So if he values autonomy over decentralization. I think it was already explained with the on-chain governance a bit, where it basically, will be very decentralized at least. And I think that's the direction that we're taking, right, Zeus?
Yeah, I think that it's unrealistic to expect high turnout if everyone is voting on their own behalf. So how Snapshot works is that your tokens are your votes, and if you do not, yourself go to Snapshot and vote on a proposal, those votes are not included. And so, turnout is a lot less than if you have delegation, then it comes down to, so I think that delegation should be like the likely or probably best outcome is that you are not voting on your own behalf unless you're really paying attention to governance. If you want to be really involved, then you should be really involved. But I would see it as, if you want to be really involved, you should go beyond just your own token voting power, and you should be swaying other people to delegate to you, because you want to be a voice in governance. And, you shouldn't want to just speak on your own behalf. If you're going to do that work, because other people, many other people, are just not going to want to keep up with everything that's going on in governance. I don't think that you really need to. Like in that case, like you really just you kind of have a situation of delegatees or delegators and delegatees. So you are either delegating to people that align with the direction that you think that we should go in, and they will receive your voting power and they should vote in that, towards that direction. Maybe you check in every now and then and you look at the things that they have voted on and you reassess, are they aligned with my own values? You then have delegators or delegatees, who are the people that are receiving delegation. They should have their own voting power. They should have a position. They should have risk and downside. But their own voting power is probably going to be greater than just the position that they hold, because they are being active. They are, taking initiative to, be a part of these discussions, and guide us in a beneficial manner. And they are communicating that to all of you so that you can, know, this is a person that, probably aligns with my own values and I should delegate to them. And so, with that, the overall voting power becomes much greater. The turnout is much greater because you have people that delegate and their voting power is now included in the entire voting pool. And so, like, at a bare minimum, it's more difficult to manipulate governance because, a single large holder is less than, thousands of small holders. You're still going to outweigh them just on a nominal basis, unless they're fucking huge. But like, I think that it really lends itself to like, ensuring that smaller bags retain a voice. It's just that you choose your voice and that person votes on your behalf. It is a republic and not a direct democracy. There's very few examples of direct democracies. There's a good argument against them. I know Warto was telling me the other day this quote from Winston Churchill that's like, democracy is the worst form of government except every other kind. Republic democracy kind of is the most functional structure there, at least historically. Hopefully that.
Yeah, no, that explains. Maybe a last question, which I think is also quite important, and I've had in my DMs a couple of times now, is what do you see the main drivers of the treasury being in the coming year? Is it bonds, of course, will be a big factor, but what else? Like, what else do you see going there?
Yeah, I mean, we're generating pretty ridiculous amounts of money already. Just utilizing those assets. I mean, so this is where I actually deviate from a lot of other people, and I think that's just fine. It's like I don't really view that as the purpose. Never have. I've voiced like caution when putting assets at risk. In that, I see the purpose of those assets as really the ability to generate strength or what's the word I'm looking for? Confidence. At times when they are needed. And especially as that nominal number gets bigger, that becomes easier just because it's, we're at a point where there are still entities that could outweigh the treasury, but it becomes a lot harder. And actually that's one of the benefits of, these sad days is that, the size of the large holders generally shrinks. And ownership of the network gets distributed out more. Yeah, I mean, I know that there are many people that are, actively building treasury strategies to actively utilize those assets in beneficial manner or ways. I know that, one of the really cool things is like the incubator and the grants program where, there are these very cool projects that are being spun up where, we as a network and as a community are supporting them, and we take upside in those projects. There's this really strong argument that like why take money from a VC when you can take money from thousands of Chads in a community, where I don't see that as really changing anytime soon. Where Olympus has access to the best and newest projects in the space. We give them greater benefits than they would just taking capital from third-party investors, and we gain upside in their success, not only on a token basis, but as well, if we get them to pair with Ohm, then they're expanding our market infrastructure. We're giving Ohmies new outlets to go and invest in new projects. Yeah, I guess those are a couple, but I don't think that I'm even like when it comes to treasury, like the right guy to talk to.
No. But I think that's the thing, right? Like, there are just so many possibilities to grow the treasury and to can still work upon as well, and that are only being half developed now. That is quite bullish for us to really harp on the possibilities that we have there. So yeah, I think it was a good way to end. Maybe some closing words. I know you have it late, but closing words for the Omis here. That are now 3 hours into a community call.
Yeah, I guess like we have spent the last 10 months, but especially like the last 10 months putting in place more and more foundational elements of the system. I don't consider it completed, but it's really getting close. And like this migration has been a big step in that direction. I guess it's just a matter like, I think especially with the whole like forks thing, like one of the things that said to me was that there's this belief that this thing is done. Um, it's not going to be done for years. And I nor anyone really knows what the completed state looks like, but I do know that there are many different pieces in here with secondary bond markets and interest rate markets and greater proliferation of ohm as a liquidity and reserve asset. These things take time, but they are actively coming together. I see it every single day. I remain very hopeful about the system and the outcome here. I know that like sentiment on that changes on a daily basis, weekly basis, whatever. But I think it's really important to just like one, look at the long term vision here. Look at the things that are coming together to accomplish that, which it's hard for me to put into words because there are literally so many different like angles and things that are occurring that which one do you really pick. But look at those things, and that's what you determine your like outlook on, not day-to-day fluctuations of market prices. Because if you do that, you're really just going to end up in like a super volatile emotional state, like always. That's the case with really any project. Like, it's kind of one of the curses of crypto is just this like direct correlation between how people view a project going and a market for that project in early stages. I don't know. At least on the builder side, if you're someone actively contributing to this, like I don't really see it, but don't let that sway you. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to what's built and not the market price on January 10th. Like I don't know. You zoom out 6 months and you're like, or you move forward 6 months and you have the same situation on July 10th. That's never going to change. What does change is what's built and accomplished in the meantime. Yeah. I don't know. I'm quite happy with the things that have happened in agnostic to that in the past couple of months. I guess that's the one bad thing in a sea of what I think are really good things.
That's true. Okay, thank you. I won't hold you.
Yeah, I got a job.
Thank you for joining. Thank you everyone here also on like in this call. Very happy that you all joined us for this quite interesting 3-hour session. I hope a lot of questions were answered. If not, please again, we'll be still here in the V2 Bond AMA chat or in the question chat. Please direct all your questions there. If you still have any other stuff that you would like to discuss with me or anyone else, I know Zeus DMs are a nightmare, so please DM me. I'll take that. And yeah, we can go